What's going on there, guys? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a few out there. It's the Earthmaster here on this Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. It's about 12:22 p.m. here along the West Coast in California. Latest quake shows a 1.8 into the area of Southern California. Looks like just off the southern branch there of the San Andreas Fault. Going to start off here first with a major change going on with the Kīlauea volcano and Mauna Loa. Both of these volcanoes are no longer erupting, putting an end to the most recent eruption, which is Mauna Loa, which started on November 27th and lasted for about 14 days. The official end of the eruption is on the 10th of this month. Kīlauea volcano is currently no longer erupting either. So we've had a long-duration Kīlauea event since last year, where the eruption has been confined to the lava lake, the crater up there. And now, almost at the same time, both of these volcanoes ceased to erupt. Pretty crazy, huh? Definitely a link. Not for sure what's going on, but let's go ahead and check out the latest informational statement here on Kīlauea volcano, and then we'll check out Mauna Loa. Here is the update on Kīlauea. The advisory levels here have now been downgraded for Kīlauea volcano. They're on the big island of Hawaii, from watch to advisory for the alert level, and for the aviation code from orange to yellow. Kīlauea is no longer erupting, and lava supply to the crater, to the lava lake, ceased on December 9th, based upon lava lake levels and behavior of the crater floor. Also, sulfur dioxide emissions have decreased to near pre-eruption background levels. Crazy, right? Seismicity and deformation patterns remain unsettled. Potential remains for a restart of this eruption, or possibly, check this out, an initiation of a new eruption at or near the summit of Kīlauea. So HVO continues to closely monitor Kīlauea for signs of renewed activity. Should volcanic activity change significantly, of course, a new volcanic activity notice will be issued. Crazy stuff going on here with the latest updated information here from the USGS for their volcanoes. Now let's go ahead and check out Mauna Loa, which has been erupting, like I mentioned, erupting since the 27th of November up into the 10th of this month. Now, the update here mentions that it ceased on the 10th. That is when they no longer seen any type of lava flow. Let's go ahead and check this out. Now, the advisory levels here for the volcano was at watch, is currently down to an advisory, so downgrade. Also, the aviation code, exactly the same as Kīlauea volcano that we just checked out, orange downgraded to a yellow. Mauna Loa is no longer erupting, and lava supply to Fissure 3 vent on the northeast rift zone ceased on December 10th, making it only a 14-day eruption of Mauna Loa. And prior to that, we had 1984, right? The last eruption there was 1984 for Mauna Loa, and the time frame in between there, the quiet time period, which was 38 years between 1984 and this most recent eruption, was the longest period of quietness there at Mauna Loa in between eruptions on record. So I find all of this stuff kind of odd with a very short eruption of Mauna Loa after a very long duration of quietness. You would think it'd be opposite. You would think we'd have a longer eruption, but now both volcanoes have immediately ceased erupting. What does that mean? Who knows? I mean, it could be leading to possibly something bigger, but it's still a little bit of uncertainty on this activity that's taken place. Okay, so sulfur dioxide emissions have decreased to near pre-eruption background levels. Volcanic tremor and earthquakes associated with the eruption are greatly diminished. Now, here's the mention of the downgrading. Spots of brightness, right, this is incandescence, may remain near the vent, and that's just due to prior heat, from the lava and the magma, along the channels and at the flow front for days or weeks as the lava flows cool. However, eruptive activity is not expected to return based on past eruptive behavior. Summit and Northeast Rift Zone inflation continues. HVO continues to closely monitor Mauna Loa for signs of renewed activity. And again, these folks are saying that it's never returned to a upgraded status after following a period of eruption, at least far as their recorded data goes. So we shouldn't see this kick back up according to their past records. But we're still seeing that sufficient tilt, which makes me think something's going on well below. I'm still uncertain as to what it is. Should volcanic activity change significantly, a new volcanic activity notice will be issued immediately. So some major changes going on over the night. Actually, it all started back on the 9th there with Kīlauea and Mauna Loa ceasing to, putting an end to their eruption. Crazy stuff. Let me go check out wanted to check out the webcam features here real quick, see what we have for images. Again, this is probably going to smoke for a little bit. It's going to steam, and there could still be some brightness at night just due to the lava still there at this level, at the surface levels, and then the channels, but they will eventually cool down to nothing. There'll be no brightness or any further type of steam or smoke or SO2 emissions. Excuse me. So you can still kind of see that here in the crater zones. In the fissure, I should say. Fissure 3. Amazing. Such a short eruption time frame after an extremely long period of quietness. It doesn't make too much sense, but I'm going to watch it and see how it plays out. Remember, it's a hot spot out here, so the Pacific Plate moves over. Pacific Plate moves, and of course Hawaii kind of it forms new islands as the Pacific Plate moves. And if you look back here throughout time, you can kind of see that hot spot very distinctly and very prominent here on the oceanic floor. Eventually, those islands and whatnot get eroded away through storms and stuff like that, and they cease to exist. But Hawaii is a island in the making, and eventually there'll be further newer islands as the Pacific Plate moves to the northwest, creating the hot spots in this area, new islands. Okay, so earthquake activity, there's still some, but I believe, and as they mentioned there in one of their updates, that this is just adjustment at the crater floor, or the crater floor area from all the previous lava and magma that had filled that crater area. So we could still see these earthquakes continuing for a little while, but it's not a sign of increasing activity. It's just kind of a sign of some settlement going on with the lack of continued infusion from the previous eruption. Activity now around Pahala currently, that's always been kind of a hot spot. But overall seismic activity here on the Big Island has dropped off dramatically for now. We'll continue to watch it and see how it plays out, folks. I find it a little weird that there'd be such a short eruption there and both of them stopping all at once. Hopefully something's not getting blocked majorly way below for both the supplies. But these are, not going to go into that right now, but these are different channels and magma reservoirs here in this area for those two distinct volcanoes. So just a little weird. Okay, activity here. There's that earthquake I mentioned on the Earthquake 3D globe, right at the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. That's all we need now. That's right smack dab there, close to the Brawley seismic extensional zone. We'll watch this for some further swarming. Of course, this section right here, the southern branch, is that's the big one. That's where the big one will hit one day in Southern California, and scientists, geologists all agree anywhere from a 7.9 to an 8.1 magnitude earthquake. Enough strain is built up. The spring is wound as tight as it can be, and one day that will produce a significant large quake for the Southern California area. Aside from that, these couple recent earthquakes kicking up here in the last hour, things are somewhat minimal down south here in Southern Cal until you get up here to the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault up north. Got a little bit of swarming going on near the Pinnacles area. It's very common to see this type of movement along the creeping segment, hence the reason why they call it the creeping segment. There's not a whole lot of strain that builds up here. There can be some larger earthquakes, but nothing like the northern segment and the southern segment down here. Kind of just creeps along with these common earthquakes that occur on occasion there. I shouldn't say that. Common, that occur. It seems like on any given day we could see some 2s, some 1s, some 3s, maybe a 4 here and there. But it doesn't go extremely quiet and build up enough stress to produce an 8-pointer like we see down here on the southern branch. The Clear Lake volcanic field, that thing was kicking up like crazy overnight and yesterday in a specific area. Now, I didn't see any new hydrothermal operations out here, any new power plants, because that's what these things are. There's a huge process that takes place out here by injecting raw sewage into the heated areas below, because Clear Lake volcanic field's still active down there. Got a lot of heat and some magma way below there, and they utilize that process to create energy. But this specific area, it's away from the main zone, and the main zones are mostly centered around these hydrothermal plants, and there's a lot of them. They're all over the place. There's a very interesting process, Calpine Hydrothermal Energy Solutions, Clear Lake volcanic field. Check that out, right around the Cobb Mountain area of Northern California. But this one here has got me a little puzzled because it's outside the swarm area, and unless they have a new outfit down here, maybe they built a new energy plant down here somewhere that's not listed up on the satellite map, possibly. Either way, it had about 41 earthquakes in this area. Largest was a 2. Oh, looks like they downgraded. It was a 2.9, but now a 2.7. And some of that coming in, actually most of this coming in, it looks like overnight in that short period of time. Haven't really seen anything kick up here this morning yet, but just kind of keep an eye on it. Northern California, a little bit of activity on the coastal range here, this coastal fault system inland on the North American side of the plate boundary, which sits here, the northern segment of the San Andreas Fault. Got a couple small quakes outside of Ukiah, 2.0, and a little microquake down here on the Bacama fault zone. Cascadia, pretty quiet for now. Over here in the Gorda Plate, close to the Gorda Ridges, got a 2.9 coming in. That was last night. Well off the coast of Northern California, but still some activity there. Into Nevada, the swarm has kind of died off. We had looks like we had a couple earthquakes after midnight. Actually, all 5 of these were. So we seen nothing yesterday and the day before, but this area has seen a pretty good uptick in swarming. We'll bring up the last 30 days, and we've got about 99 earthquakes or so, including today's events in this area. And a little bit of migration up here to the northwest, it looks like, this morning with a couple 1-pointers. A lot of older volcanic activity out here. So we'll keep an eye on that, see if that comes back to play far as the swarming goes. Some movement up into the Pacific Northwest. A couple small earthquakes there after midnight or so. One outside of Seattle, 2.7, just off the Seattle fault zone. Over here in Yellowstone National Park, 2 earthquakes being listed. And let's check out the Yellowstone thumbnails, the Yellowstone overview of seismograph stations there. And it looks like most of the activity here has kind of died off. I'm not for sure what's coming in here. Let's see. Doesn't look like that rating shown up on any other stations. So this could be some type of interference. kind of looks like earthquake, so we'll watch that. Just coming in within the last few minutes. But as far as earthquake activity goes here, not a whole lot being reported overnight or this morning time period. Very small specks there, nothing major. We'll watch that for some movement, possibly, into the Southern Plains. Only got one earthquake out here, Western Texas. Southern Plains up here, some movement from yesterday. But a 2.0, Western Texas, the latest quake here on the map. Eastern portion of the country, all pretty quiet, nothing going on across the New Madrid zone. Puerto Rico Trench, kind of calming down. Haven't really seen any major uptick here around the Puerto Rico Trench since yesterday. A glance here at the earthquake 3D globe for this area shows things relatively calm. There is a 3.6 here, it looks like near Haiti, and some activity down south, but nothing like what's kicking up over here around the Indonesia area and also New Zealand region. We're starting to notice that teeter-totter effect really work its way here to the west. Let me check out the latest map here across the area. We did see some further movement overnight and late last night into the Kermadec Trench, including a 5.4 about 4 o'clock this morning. We did see a lot of deeper activity here within this region over the last week in Fiji, so adjustment should come here shortly along the subduction zone levels upstream. That's the Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench, and New Zealand area where we have been seeing a little bit of activity. Let me check out the GeoNet servers here real quick. Stand by for just a quick second. And the last, well, it shows a 2.6 8 hours ago, but we'll check out the all magnitudes. 2.4 off the coast, North Island, New Zealand, a couple minutes ago. Looks like there was a 3.1 there in that vicinity as well. A couple small earthquakes near Taupo Volcano, it looks like. So definitely an uptick, I would say, so far this morning for this area. And we'll do a quick glance here at the Taupo Volcano, which looks like a couple very small earthquakes here in the vicinity. There's some activity last night, but no swarm kicking up here. According to this map, things look pretty calm for now in this area. Other areas of New Zealand, looks like some activity kicking up in the region. No major swarms, though, to take note of. Just a couple earthquakes within the vicinity of New Zealand, North Island. Let's see here. Let me get back to the latest map. But this should show a little bit of increasing activity here with all this movement deep that we've seen in the last couple days near Fiji. Pretty good uptick in earthquakes across the Indonesia area. And USGS, of course, only shown a small amount, 4.0 and above. But we're getting one heck of a swarm here into the area at the southern end of the Java Trench with quite a few 2s and 3s and some 4s in here as well. Kind of see some of that activity taking place here. Well, it looks like the largest one so far is a 5.2 near the Bali Basin into the southern end here of the Java Trench. These are pretty shallow earthquakes, so about 10 kilometers deep in that zone. Banda Sea area did see some movement this morning. Let's go back to the newest first. 4.7 early this morning, and then some yesterday afternoon with that 5.3. Did have an earthquake come in off the coast of Japan into the northwestern section here of the Philippine plate around the East China Sea, just outside of there. 5.7. This came in as a 6.1, so a little bit of a downgrade. Mariana Trench did see some activity last night, some deeper movements. A lot of times these deeper earthquakes do put a lot of strain westward because that's a general plate movement in this area. If you check out the Filipino plate, where we're looking at where that earthquake struck, deeper movement tends to add that further stress in this region. But if there's not enough built-up stress over here, and say there is quite a bit of stress built up here back upstream, then we could see earthquake activity up at the subduction zone levels. Closer to the, where the plates start to subduct. But it all depends exactly on where the most stress is built up, and in this case, that deeper earthquake activity here triggered further movement into the western zones there of the Philippine plate. Off the coast of Japan up here, 4.0. That one coming in about 5 o'clock. Super deep, 322 kilometers there, adding further stress around our major watch zone. That's going to be the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Up here along the Alaska area, not seeing any major uptick. There's a little bit of movement way up north to Alaska. Well off the northern portion of Alaska, 2.6 and a 3.1. Roughly within seconds of each other up here. Now these are a ways away from any major plate. But got one deep one and a shallower one up here. Don't see too much earthquake activity out there. Let's look at the regional information. Well, go over here to the interactive map and see what we have. What's going on here? Let me back out a little bit. Where's our earthquakes at? Most of the time we can see the earthquakes here from there we go, historical seismic activity. For some reason that wasn't checked. But either way, looking at this earthquake activity, not really seeing a whole lot up here where these earthquakes struck this morning. At least nothing recorded 4.5 and above in this zone. It would show up as areas down south here. And of course along the plate boundaries, quite a bit. Quite a bit of earthquake activity. Alright, see what else we have here. Again, the Hawaii deal is just kind of a little puzzling there, but we'll keep an eye on it and see if anything changes. Further west of our little active region here, we got some movement into Iran. Early this morning, a 5.2 coming in. The pager system, a yellow, meaning that this is kind of felt over a pretty decent amount of population here, 10 kilometers deep, a relatively shallow earthquake. Some eastern Afghanistan activity as well, and some movement around Greece this morning with a 4.2 coming in, 74 kilometers deep. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet, nothing showing up across the board. And a look here at the EMSC model, the globe here, shows that's correct. Not a whole lot being reported out here across the Atlantic for now. Alright, let's see what else we got. Some space weather activity. No noteworthy events detected here within the last 24 hours. Looks like 90% chance for a C flare, M flare around 20, X flare around 1% or less. Not really expecting anything major popping off from these sunspots. There's quite a few of them, folks, and some should be newly named ones here pretty soon. This one here has grown pretty drastically within the last 24 hours, but there's a pretty large separation here between each magnetic structure. And these other ones look like they've just kind of decayed pretty significantly here over the past 12 hours since I last did my update. This one's grown. All these other ones here have just kind of dissipated. So we'll keep an eye on this regional sunspot. It is not 3160. 3160 is now going to be this area right here. This is the latest updated info and image. But this one right here is going to be named 3167, I believe. 3167 or 3168, depending on which one they want to name here. Either way, we'll watch those potentially for some activity. No major coronal holes facing us. There is a regional coronal hole coming into the Earth view, but it is fairly positioned south here on the sun, and I don't think that's going to play any major part with any activity here on Earth as far as the auroras go. So conditions will remain lowered over the next few nights until something happens. Not a whole lot of potential there for the auroras right now. Alright guys, have yourself a wonderful Tuesday. I better fix that Earth because we are not spinning backwards. That would be bad news. Have a good day, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on tonight with the update video. Stay safe, everyone. Peace out.